in Willow Creek, a quiet town where rules were supposed to protect the neighborhood but often turned into weapons for control. I had always known the HOA was trouble, but I never thought they would go this far. My home sat by the lake, a small piece of property passed down through my family, and on that lake rested my pride and joy, an old but sturdy boat my grandfather had bought decades ago. That boat wasn't just wood and nails, it was my childhood, my summers, my late father's laughter as we fished at dawn, my mother's voice humming while we drifted under the stars. It was the one thing that connected me to the people I had lost. The HOA hated me for never bowing to their petty demands. I refused to paint my shutters the color they demanded, refused to pay their made-up fines, refused to let them tell me when to mow my lawn or how many guests could visit my property. To them, I was the rebel, the example they needed to crush. I laughed off their letters, their warnings, their threats, until one night I woke up to the smell of smoke. At first I thought it was the chimney of a neighbor, but then the sound reached me, the awful crackling, the angry roar of fire. I ran outside barefoot, and what I saw froze me in place. My boat, my family's legacy. It was on fire, flames licking up the wooden sides, sparks flying into the night as the dock groaned under the heat. I shouted, grabbed a hose, but it was too late. The fire had already devoured her. I stood helplessly as the boat collapsed into itself, charred and broken, sinking into the black water of the lake. My neighbors peeked from behind curtains, watching but not helping. They knew who had done this. We all knew. The HOA had finally taken their war against me to the next level. By morning nothing was left but ashes, twisted metal, and the smell of smoke clinging to the air. The sheriff came, wrote down a few notes, but his eyes told me that rather he wouldn't stand against them. Not here, not in Willow Creek where the HOA pulled all the strings. They thought they had silenced me, broken me, stripped me of my past. But they had just made the biggest mistake of their lives. I wasn't only a homeowner, I was a financial analyst, trained in uncovering fraud, tracing accounts, and following paper trails. If they wanted to fight dirty, I would fight smarter. I started digging into the HOA's financial reports, documents they mailed to every homeowner but expected no one to read. I studied every line, every maintenance fee, every community project, every suspicious legal expense. The numbers didn't add up. I cross-referenced payments, matched dates, tracked down checks, and what I found made my blood boil. They were stealing. Karen Whitmore, the HOA president, and her cronies on the board were siphoning money into shell accounts, paying fake contractors, and laundering thousands of dollars through bogus projects. They weren't protecting their community, they were robbing it blind. I gathered everything, spreadsheets, bank trails, forged invoices, and I marched it to the State Financial Crimes Unit. At first they dismissed me, said HOA complaints were a dime a dozen, but when they saw my evidence their tone changed. One investigator leaned back in his chair and said, "This isn't mismanagement, this is embezzlement." From there the wheels of justice turned quickly. Court orders were issued. Overnight, every HOA bank account was frozen. The reserve funds, the petty cash, the secret slush funds hidden under shell names. Checks started bouncing. Contractors stopped showing up. Their lawyer refused to represent them without payment. Their lifeline was gone. At the next HOA meeting chaos erupted, neighbors whispering, board members yelling, Karen screaming at anyone who would listen. And then she came to my house, stomping up my driveway with her face red and eyes wild. "What did you do?" she shrieked. I stood on my porch, calm and steady. "You should have left me alone, Karen. You burned my boat, my family's legacy. Now you're watching your empire burn." She spat threats, promised lawsuits, but we both knew she had no money, no power, nothing left to stand on. A week later the sheriff came again, but this time not with empty words. He handed me official papers, the charges filed against Karen and the HOA board: fraud, embezzlement, conspiracy. One by one they were indicted. Neighbors who once stayed silent began to thank me quietly. An elderly man clasped my hand and whispered, "You freed us. We were afraid, but you did what none of us could." Months passed, and the HOA crumbled into dust. The board was dissolved, the community released from their grip, and Willow Creek finally breathed free air again. Karen's name became a curse, her legacy one of greed and downfall. And me, I still walk down to the lake, to the empty dock where my boat once rested. I hear the lap of water against the wood, see the ghost of the boat that carried my family's laughter. But I don't feel loss anymore. I feel victory. Because when they torched my past, they awakened a resolve stronger than fire. They thought they could scare me into silence. Instead, I silenced them forever.